Welcome everybody to the seventh stream of DBB Live. Hope you've all had a great day so far and are ready to talk some Detroit basketball. I'm Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys, and I am joined, as always, by the Aussie himself, Jack Kelly from Detroit Bad Boys. And Jack, how you doing today?
I'm good, Wes. I'm good. I think I'm over the shock of Tuesday night. I've um, I've come around to the fact that Detroit will be picking at 5, and yeah, there's some guys I'm actually really excited about now. Now that we know where we're picking or where Detroit are picking, this is sort of where the fun begins, I guess, from like a content creation point of view and discussion with fans. Yeah, I'm feeling good now.
Absolutely. And both of us were absolutely pumped to be joined by Damon Allred from Detroit Bad Boys and Bright Side of the Sun. So, Damon, how are you feeling after that? We'll call it an unfortunate slide for Detroit.
Yeah, I was actually in the car watching the lottery, and as soon as they go to commercial right before they announce the top four, and you're just hoping to make it to the commercial at least, given the top four and versus the fifth, having the 50-50 shot, but to not even make it in there was just such a heart drop moment.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it was for us too on that stream. But hey, so let's just kind of tackle this then right off the bat. And this is kind of general. So I'm hoping I'm not stealing anyone's questions in the chat or in the comments. But dropping to 5, like, do we think this is cataclysmic, for the rebuild? Like, by not picking top 3, are the Pistons set back years? I mean, like, personally, I don't think so, but going into the draft, I kind of viewed this as a 6-player-ish draft. Um, like I said, even before the lottery night. So having a top 5 pick, I was pretty cool with it no matter what. But I mean, I totally get the disappointment coming from fans too. So, Damon, where are you at on that? Like, is the rebuild screwed?
Yeah, so I said this in the roundtable that it feels to me like it's a set. There's the Wemby at the top, and then Scoot, I kind of feel, is in a tier by himself at 2. And then 3 and 4, Brandon Miller, Amen Thompson, for me at least, you can go either way. That feels like where there's a drop off afterwards. So I'm sitting there at 5, kind of hoping that one of those 4 can fall. But if not, I'm feeling really good about Asar and Jarris at this point too.
Yeah, I think to piggyback off what Damon's saying, like, overall, I don't think the rebuild's it's not a code red situation. It's not all hope is lost. I think for a lot of fans coming into the night, me included, like, we sort of had probably our hearts set on walking away with a real franchise cornerstone, like, a Scoot Henderson or obviously Victor Wembanyama. And I guess some people are very high on Brandon Miller. So to leave at pick 5, you sort of feel like you've missed the boat on that blue chip sort of prospect. Although, like, the thing is, we're still a month from the draft. There's a lot that can change with workouts. Once these teams start chatting to these top prospects more, there could be some movement. I mean, Portland are a team to watch. They're in a real interesting spot. The draft does start at pick 2 as well, because we don't know what the Hornets will do. I mean, for me, if I was a Hornets fan, I'd want them to take Scoot Henderson, but we've seen how Charlotte operate as an organization. They sort of, I don't know, there's a chance they go a different way and Scoot drops to 3, and there's so much that can happen. So to round out my response, the all hope shouldn't be lost, but it was definitely a gut punch, that's for sure.
You want to just roll into questions, Jack?
Yeah, go for it, man. We got the
I'll pull it up. It's from our guy, Pistons Turkey here. So, which player is your wish for the 5th pick if the first 4 picks are, I mean, in any order, Wemby, Scoot, Miller, and Amen Thompson? What are you guys thinking, Jack?
For me, I've really come around on Cam Whitmore. The past couple of days, I've just been watching film, diving into some stats and that sort of thing. And I mean, when I say he fits well alongside Cade and Ivy, I'm not specifically saying draft for fit, but the athletic profile, jump out of the gym, really strong. Like he's just got a really strong frame. And I think there's this there's this thing going around on Pistons Twitter at the moment that is Sadiq Bey, and he's certainly not Sadiq Bey. He has a similar frame, but there's plenty of differences. I mean, I think for me, coming into the season, if the Pistons are to draft him as a rookie, there's so much stuff he can do sort of off ball. He's a really good cutter. He shot 40% on catch and shoot threes. He can attack closeouts decently. There's a lot to like there. And then on the defensive end, he can be a disruptor. I think he averaged over a steal a game, really get out in transition. And yeah, this Detroit team just needs more athleticism overall. And I think particularly on the wing, Cam Whitmore really fits the bill.
Yeah, for me, Cam is one of the guys I want to get back around to. I think maybe my next piece for the site will be on Cam. You look at the athletic testing, and what can you do but throw your arms up and say, guy's a freak of nature. I think one of the sports testing places had him as like literally the top 1 percentile, like ever, which is just tantalizing on its own. But then when you factor in how that can affect his defense, like you said, it looks to me from the highlights that he kind of salivates after those pickpocket opportunities that can turn into dunks. Mm-hmm. And so I think that if that all can come together with, feel of the game, which I've heard questioned, I want to take another look at. I think that he can be a guy that certainly comes up into that next tier, which for me right now is just Asar and Jarris.
What's your pitch on Asar and Jarris? Sounds like you might be like I guess pick one of those for 5, right? Like what's your go-to, your lean right now?
I think I'm leaning Asar just because I think he has such a higher ceiling than Jarris, just because of that athleticism that he has, that him and his brother both have. I think Asar's a little better of a shooter than Amen is at this point. And Asar works better off the ball than Amen does at this point, which is better fit for what Detroit needs. They've got the 2 high usage guards. And so pairing someone like Asar who can cut really well, who can defend really well 1 through 3 or 4. And I just think that would be a good mix.
Yeah, no, I like it. And I mean, the Thompson twins in general are just kind of scary to me. But regardless, so if that's the top 4, I'm leaning Cam Whitmore. I've really liked Cam Whitmore for a long time. The only bit that as of today is giving me some pause is I very much like the idea of adding a wing who can guard guards just to take some pressure off of Cade. Because right now, between him and Ivy, I mean, neither are, I would call, plus defenders as of right now, but I think Cade is demonstrably the better defender between the two. And with the amount of work and load you're going to be putting on his shoulders on offense, I would really appreciate and be targeting wings that can take some of that off. So, I know he'd be off the board in this scenario, but I think Amen Thompson's a guy that really can do that. You could probably start him out at the 3. He can handle himself on the wing. But then at the same time, you could play him down if you've got a guard like Damian Lillard and you want to hide Cade a little bit just to give him some air on the defensive side of the court. And then the other guy is Anthony Black, who I view as a very similar but less athletic prospect to Amen Thompson. I think he's got kind of a similar defensive profile where he could really play out on the wing. You could shift him down on the guards. I think he can very comfortably guard 1 through 3. So I'm still going to say Cam Whitmore. I really like Cam Whitmore. I like his athletic ability. I like the potential there. He's one of the youngest guys in the draft. He shot it really well off the catch. But I am considering 2 other options just for the guard defensive ability. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Jack, before we move on.
No, my only thought on the pick 5, I mean, we sort of touched on Jarris Walker, is that there is a feeling that Troy is going to want to play two bigs no matter what. So if that's what we're going to have, regardless of who the coach is, I'm open to Walker at 5 purely because I feel like him alongside Jalen Duren would be a really tantalizing defensive front court, and even offensively. I mean, we've spoken about Duren's passing. I feel like Walker on offense is a bit more of a there's potential there, but I don't think he does anything extremely well on offense. It's more of like a toolbox to see where, or he's going to be a jack of all trades on offense. I think he shot 34% on threes, so there could be some potential there. So I guess, yeah, if we're going to see the two bigs, he's a guy at 5. I wouldn't mind either.
And if I can just interject real quick, if you're looking to go after the two bigs, Monty Williams would be a great coach for that. There were times when he wanted to roll out starters of Ayton next to Jock Landale, which just made no sense to us. But, two bigs, if that's your role right now, then Monty might be your guy.
No, that's some awesome insight. I would have had no idea. Did he ever actually start those two? Or not start, sorry, but play them
at the same time? Yeah, there were a little bit of stretches, especially in January when Booker was out all the time. They played together a lot, and it confused us all. But he darn well did it.
Was it effective at all?
I think defensively, yes, but offensively, no. Jock can move his feet a little better than he gets credit for, so it worked from that sense at least.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Moving on here to the next question from Chris. Which Raptors player do you think would be more attainable with the 5th pick, OG or Pascal Siakam? Which do you think would be a better fit? Wes, what's your immediate thoughts?
My gut is that the most attainable has got to be OG, right? I mean, he's been in trade rumors 2 seasons now, 2.5. It seems like there's been some movement on wanting to, I mean, either him wanting to get out of Toronto or Toronto wanting to move on from him for at least a little bit now. But I don't know. I mean, with Siakam, maybe. I guess I could see either. I think OG's definitely the better fit, though. I mean, you get a guy, that kind of defender out on the wing who can shoot, who can score like that. I mean, he would be kind of an idealized wing type or archetype to get on this team. What do you think, Damon?
I mean, OG is kind of what you were hoping Sadiq would become, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you move off of Sadiq and then get the better version of him who can, he's showing a lot more on-ball flashes and creation flashes lately than even before the trade talks started. He's not just a defensive guy anymore. So I think that would be a good fit. I think, especially with it being the 5th pick and not higher, that OG is certainly more attainable than Siakam. And Siakam might be open to a fresh start in Toronto now that Nick Nurse isn't there. I know they had quite a rocky situation there at the end. So I think maybe that he's just more willing to be the face of the franchise again for them, potentially, at least.
Yeah, well, Siakam's actually, so next year he'll be on the last deal of the last season of his current contract at $37 million. So,
interesting.
And I guess OG still has 2 more seasons, but that second one's a player option. He's around $20 million. So, in terms of more attainable, it's really interesting. Wes and I were talking offline, like the Raptors, they're in a real intriguing spot because I also think Fred VanVleet's a free agent as well. So,
I believe so.
They sort of, did they flame out? Yeah, they flamed out in the play-in, didn't they? They didn't make the playoffs. So it's really like they fired their coach, obviously. So what direction they go in is really, really interesting. In terms of a better fit, I think it's probably OG. I mean, both would fit pretty well. The only thing is Siakam I think is turning 30. So maybe a touch old. But yeah, you guys covered it really well. OG on the wing would be the perfect fit for this team.
Just in the general sense, what are you guys' thoughts as of today on exploring trades on that 5th pick? Like, what would you need to see Do you even like the idea of moving on? Jack, I know you've got some thoughts if you want to jump in first.
Uh, it's tricky. I
Yeah.
naturally I want to keep the pick. I think there's a couple of guys we've spoken about who could be really, really solid players, potentially maybe all-stars, potentially at pick 5. This could be the last time Detroit, or this probably should be the last time Detroit are picking in this range. I'm not saying playoffs next season, but if they were to be in the top 5 again, that would probably signal disaster from a team
Or
building point of
incredible
view.
lottery luck.
Or incredible lottery luck, exactly.
Making up for this year's.
Yeah, I think
Right.
because this could be the last time they pick 5th or lower. I want to take a player. That's where I'm leaning right now.
For me, one of the things I look at is Orlando has 6 and 11, so I wonder if that could maybe be parlayed for like 5 and 31, and see if something like that could work out. Maybe throw in another player on either side to make things work out better. But I think it has to be, if you're going to trade down in this draft for more picks, then they have to be picks that are still valuable, like having 2 in the lottery would be. But other than that, I'm more than okay for trading for a vet.
Yeah,
I think.
Oh,
Go
you
ahead.
go, Wes. I was just gonna say that Orlando, like that was something pre-lottery I was intrigued by if Detroit did fall to 5, which they did. But I just can't see the Magic. Like, Damon, is there that much difference between pick 5 and 6? Like,
No, and that's part of the thinking, yeah.
And I guess even if for Detroit to throw in a player, like, I just don't know who the Pistons could offer to even swing that. Like, do they feel like the Magic need a point guard? Like they need. I know they got Fultz, but I feel like for them to trade down or something like that, it'd have to be for like Scoot, or we'd have to give Ivy, or some intriguing guard prospect. So that's the only issue I have with that trading with the Magic. Because I would love to, like, if you get pick 6 and 11, that would be awesome.
Yeah, it's tough sledding for sure, trying to make that work.
For sure. I agree with pretty much what you guys said. I mean, if they're going to go for a vet, I would either want to try to package 5 with a few other somethings to try and get someone who's younger and already kind of on that all-star track, if someone's willing to move off of it for the 5th pick, which I think is probably unlikely. And then the other one would be getting just a good, solid young player and then kind of deferring a pick. So maybe getting a pick next year or the year after. Those would be really the only 2 scenarios. Other than that, I mean, I don't know how likely trade downs even are. They don't seem to happen too often in the top 10 with the NBA, right? I mean, at least in my memory going back 5-ish years as
The
of
one
right
that
now.
the only one that jumps out to me was, I think, the Pelicans and Hawks made a trade in 2019. The Hawks jumped up to
Was that
4.
the Zion draft, right?
Yeah, they jumped up to take Hunter. And the
Nice.
Pelicans traded back and took Jackson Hayes. But
that same draft, the Suns also traded back from, I think it was 6 to 11. Jarrett Culver went 6th and Cam Johnson with 11. And then Minnesota also sent Dario Saric in that trade.
Yeah. And
okay, so something like that then could be possible.
Yeah. Maybe 5 down to 11 plus a player from the Magic. Maybe that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, that's actually a much more realistic package. I agree. All right, next question here we've got from Rogue Blue. What effect does drafting Walker have on Wiseman? Does Wiseman stop Troy from drafting Walker? I love this question.
Yeah, that's a good one.
We'll let Wes answer this one first as the Wiseman guru.
Oh, you're just throwing it to me because, I've been pro Wiseman, but only in the fact I don't want to say bad about him.
I've got to stop this joke. Wes is not a James Wiseman stan. I just like saying it. That'll be the last time I make that joke for at least maybe the end of this episode.
You're fine. You're fine. I think I'm simply with Wiseman is I'm willing to give him grace for an offseason and see if he can do it, see if he can hit potential. If not, then I'm out day like 5 on the year. For this question specifically, I think you're already looking at Wiseman coming off the bench, backing up Duran. Like I think that's already likely the plan, having him paired along with Bagley. We saw that quite a bit to finish off the year. So I think if the front court stays the same, you're looking at Stewart and Duran as your starters, Bagley and Wiseman backing them up. Now, if you add Walker, I would bet that has more impact on Bagley's minutes or potential trade candidacy than it does Wiseman, only because I have to believe that Bagley probably has more value as of today based on all that we haven't seen from James Wiseman, right? So like Sean Corp, managing editor DBB, great guy. He's mentioned this before on this show, right? He looks at the Wiseman move as simply trying to take another shot on a high potential guy and seeing what happens. Like just because Wiseman was a guy that Weaver had really high in that draft doesn't mean he values him like a number one pick as of right now on the roster. Like that was very much a flyer move and see what happens. So I would be shocked if having Wiseman on this roster really prevents him from drafting a guy like Walker or drafting a guy like Hendricks just because they're bigs. Like I think Weaver's probably just in pure talent acquisition mode, and any way he could get a shot at a guy that has star potential, no matter how unlikely it is, he's taking the swing. So I guess that's my roundabout answer on it.
I'm keen to get Damon's thoughts, but all I'll say is
Yeah.
when has having a current big on the roster ever stopped Troy Weaver from adding more bigs? It hasn't.
That is a great
so,
question. It hasn't.
Yeah, that's my answer. But Damon?
Yeah, well, first off, I really don't think that there's anything keeping the two from playing together, truthfully.
True.
And I do think that Bagley would be the sort of one to fall on the sword there in terms of minute distribution. But Walker just makes such an impact defensively that it's hard to keep him off the floor, especially next to someone like Wiseman, where Wiseman can play a little lower and Walker can play a little higher. And then you got that sort of dynamic duo in the middle of the lane that's making other teams' lives hard. I also don't think that Wiseman's straight up good enough to warrant, prioritization like that. If there's a big in the draft that Weaver likes better, he's going to take him. That's just how he is.
Yeah, well said. Well said. James Wiseman hasn't shown enough yet to warrant that sort of treatment. No shade to
absolutely not.
But he's just unfortunately hasn't been on the court enough to show the type of player he will be. Next question here is from Pistons Turkey. Once again, I hope Hendricks drops to 10. It would be nice to take him and finish the draft with the duo last year, like Ivy and Duran. I think Dallas is eager to trade the pick and bad contracts for the players. So I guess, can you guys envision? Well, first of all, do we think Taylor Hendricks would drop to 10? I feel like he's 7, 8, maybe higher. But
Hendricks is another guy that I got to go back and revisit the film to see the rise that everyone else has seen.
Well, I guess, Damon, what are your thoughts on Hendricks currently?
Very minimal. I think out of all the surefire lottery guys that everyone's expecting, I think he's the guy I've watched the least of. But as far as the archetype and the overall positional value that he serves, it's a 6'9" creator. Those are tough to come by in the league.
Yeah, and I think he measured out to have a 7'2" wingspan at the combine.
Wow.
He's just that. Yeah, I've done a little bit on Hendricks. I need to revisit him and sort of get more of a feel. But from the basic profile, is really good 3-point shooter. Doesn't really create much inside the arc, and a really good help side defender, shot blocker. So that is another player that if Troy wants to play two bigs, the Pistons want to play two bigs, he really fits the mold of a 3-and-D 4 per se. So Yeah, I could see. I'm not sure about pick 5, but it also wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen his range from anywhere from like 6 all the way up to low teens, right? I mean, there's a pretty wide spread of opinion on him. I know I've got him probably around 7 or 8. I'm still working on finishing out that back 9 that I've got on my board right now. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's possible he could drop to 10. I think the more interesting question with this is what it might take to get that pick from Dallas, right? And I kind of think it would have to be Bojan. When I mean, that would be the guy they're targeting to really upgrade on the wing, on the forward. I doubt they would want. I'm looking at the roster now. I really doubt they'd want to get rid of Tim Hardaway Jr. Despite his larger contract, and we know they're going to really make a push to keep Kyrie. So if you're slotting, a small ball lineup with Bojan there at the forward spot, you'd be looking at guys like Reggie Bullock, Maxi Kleber, or Davis Bertans coming back to Detroit along with that 10th pick. So is that something that might be worth doing? Say you get Reggie Bullock and Taylor Hendricks and you give up Bojan. Is that worth the shot, I guess?
I think that'd be a big win.
Oh, sorry, Damon, I cut you off there.
Oh, I just think that'd be a big win in terms of the value that you give up, with Bojan being aging and still feeling kind of out of place among the Pistons core. I think to recoup value in that way with a desperate team, frankly, I think the Mavs are pretty desperate to turn that 10th pick into a player that can play playoff minutes for them. I think that'd be a big win for Detroit.
Yeah, for sure. So just to confirm, it was essentially Bojan for Reggie Bullock and the pick. Does that work?
Yep, basically. They had like 3 contracts that looked like they were close enough where it would go through. I didn't actually put it through a machine or anything, but
yeah,
it was Bullock, Maxi Kleber, or Davis Bertans.
I just wonder if the Mavs. I feel like they would maybe do Bertans and pick 10 for Bojan.
That might be a little more likely, yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
Which I would. I think I would do that. I think I would
have a little 3-point shooting off the bench and Bertans.
Yeah, like the Pistons lose their best shooter that they've ever had, and the spacing, but yeah, for pick 10, I don't mind that. That's a good trade, Wes. All right, next question's from Henry. Did you guys see the Jake Fisher article? So for those that might have missed it, Jake Fisher basically reported that, as we all know, the Pistons haven't selected a coach and that there's potential that the search could be reopened, looking at some of the playoff coaches that were fired. So Mike Budenholzer, who am I missing here, guys? Help me out. Nick Nurse, Monty Williams.
Doc Rivers,
Doc Rivers.
Nick Nurse, like you said.
There was also guys like Sam Cassell who have interviewed for the Philly job, another guy they could potentially interview. So I guess what are your guys' initial thoughts? Because I think that amongst the fan base, people are concerned that this interview process has gone on for, has it been 4 or 5 weeks, maybe longer? And it feels like the 3 candidates that have been leading the way, they might not appeal to Tom Gores, and there's a bit of angst amongst the fan base that decision has been made. So what are your guys' thoughts?
Well, I'm pretty full steam ahead on Monty. I'm obviously a little biased coming from the Suns' perspective, but I think that he's exactly what Detroit needs as far as someone that can come in and make sure that the young guys stay on the right path to get to where they need to be in their development arc. and this is the case with the Suns, he's maybe not the guy to take you to the top, but he's the guy that can really ferment whether you're going to be a good organization or not.
Yeah, so my thoughts on just the article in general. Um, I mean, it seemed very speculative, the reasons why we're still waiting, right? I mean, it was thrown out that maybe Tom Gores just wasn't impressed with anyone. Maybe there's internal discussions. Maybe there's debate. Um, Maybe they do really want to go after a guy like Monty Williams. I know that report came out that they thought that getting Victor would really strengthen their case. Um, I don't know, all because of how speculative all the reporting's been since we've learned that there were three candidates meeting with the owner. It feels to me like there's something else going on that we're just not privy to. Whether that's they've been trying to negotiate like contract terms with two or three guys and not getting anywhere, or maybe they have been having conversations with a guy like Monty Williams and he just wants to take a year off and they're trying to convince him. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know for sure if there is anything. It just seems like so much has been up in the air that there there's likely something we're missing and we just don't have access to that might come out later. I don't know. That's just my gut feeling on it.
Yeah, I think that definitely. I'm with you. Like my gut feel sort of tends to be that there's some sort of debate going on. I think it's been well documented that Troy is a massive fan of Kevin Ollie, and there might not be a full, well, there clearly isn't full alignment in the front office with that hire because I feel like it probably would have happened by now. But
maybe he's holding out.
It is
like,
a little bit.
There's so much we don't know.
No, exactly, Wes. And I think, there's obviously, there's so much we don't know, but it would be, I think I would start getting a little bit concerned if we go another couple of weeks and there's still nothing. I think you really need to have a coach. Just as from a fan's point of view, I'd be feeling starting to get a bit anxious if there's no coach and we're in the final few weeks before the actual draft night. But that's just me as a fan. I'm not sure internally if that actually has much impact.
I wonder too if the draft has any indication as far as like with the Ollie thing and potentially being able to get a Thompson twin and that connection with Ollie coming from Overtime Elite recently. I am not 100% sure whether I'm thinking that, Ollie to the Pistons would be better for a Thompson or worse for a Thompson. I think that maybe a change of coaching is what they need coming into the NBA just so that it feels like a different thing just from a psychological point of view. But yeah, I wonder if there's any sort of connection between how Weaver feels about the Thompsons and how he feels about Ollie as a candidate.
For sure.
Absolutely. The only thing I was going to add was like absolute worst case scenario, right? You need a coach before the draft because your coach, like it or not, has a lot of input on who you pick. Always. They're the person dealing with that player 24/7, right? The coach has a lot of impact on who gets picked. So if you don't have one before draft night, that's kind of a problem. That's kind of a big problem. Worst case scenario, you have to avoid that.
Yeah, because you would like to have your coach's input as well, because they're the one drawing up the game plan. They're the ones figuring out rotations. So even if the coach doesn't have the absolute ultimate say, they're a key piece in making a decision. So, I guess we'll just wait and see like we have been. But on to the next question from Cade World. With the news on Miller having bad interviews, do you think there's a chance he falls? And if so, do the Pistons need to take him? So I haven't actually heard about the interview stuff. So if someone has, could they enlighten me? If not, just move on.
Yeah, I'll jump in for you. So there was I forget who reported it. Someone had just mentioned that he interviewed poorly and speculated that he may be slightly out of shape going into workouts, which is conflicting to, I believe, what Woj had recently reported, saying that he had interviewed pretty well. One of those two reports, in all likelihood, is gamesmanship from some organization. Whichever one it is, your guess is as good as mine. But to answer the question outside of that, because I can't really judge whether he is having good or bad interviews. Yeah, it was from Draft Express. That's where both of them were coming from. That's right. Thank you, Camille. So outside of the reports, because I'm not sure which one's legit, the positive or the negative, and I don't think we'll ever know. Um, I think there is a chance that he falls. I just do. I mean, he's not the most incredible athlete. There are some interesting numbers when you start trying to weigh his performances against, good and bad defenses. Um, I don't think it's likely. I think Jack, we might have talked, and I think I said maybe 10 to 15% chance. But I probably would have said the same thing about Jaden Ivey at this time last year too. So anything can happen. If any of the top three guys are going to fall, I think it's Brandon Miller. I don't think it's likely, but he's the guy that would fall.
Yeah, I personally am not the highest on Brandon. I think it's a little bit weird to think of him having the March Madness that he had, and I know there was the injuries going on as well, but I just think it would be a little weird to leave that March Madness where he played so poorly and then for him to be a top 3 pick. I know he was SEC Player of the Year. I know he had 40-point games and all these high-scoring point games over the regular season, but just to leave the season with such a bad taste in the mouth when Alabama seemed like they could have had such an easy path to the final. I just don't know that, that's the guy that I want to put my top 3, top 4 pick into, which could leave him falling to 5, which, like I said earlier, if any of the top 4 fall to 5, you got to take them.
Yeah, yeah. Damon, you're right. We need to pitch this out to everyone in the world that he should definitely fall to 5 for no other reasons than genuine ones, for sure.
I'm actually just intrigued to get your thoughts, Damon, on we hear a lot about Brandon Miller's offense, but I think people have just assumed he's a really good defender just because of his measurables, his size. What is he like as a defender?
I think you can take a little bit of what he does offensively and have it translate over to the defense, just in terms of him being more inclined to work on the perimeter. His feet are really good for a 6'9" wing on offense, and that translates to defense as well. He moves better than most 6'9" defenders, and the contact aversion, unfortunately, also translates over a little bit, where he's not as good defending the rim. So if you have really good backline support, then he's a great defender to have. But other than that, it's a little questionable at this point for me.
Yeah, he needs to put on weight, doesn't he? I mean, he's pretty thin. I just looking at his build, I mean, I think he's got room. But like in terms of the way that he looks, not the way that he moves, he does kind of remind me of a young Jason Tatum, just rail thin, but lots of room to add on some functional strength and, see if he could take it from there. I think Tatum could jump a little bit higher though than Miller can. So that's not a perfect comp at all.
For sure. All right. Next question here is from Rogue Blue once again. Who is reasonable at the start of the second round who could be a steal? Who would you trade up for from 31? So who's someone you guys like at 31 first?
I'll go first just because there's one guy who's had a really good week and a really good, month or two in terms of just the perception of his stock and being a real riser right now. It's Brandon Podzimski from Santa Clara, aka Pods. And he just had an incredible performance in the combine scrimmage the other day. I think he finished with like 10 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists, and really just looked in control of everything. Was making all sorts of plays as far as, the hustle plays down to playmaking and really just being an impact on the game. And he might have played himself into first round territory and out of 31's range, but he's one of my favorite guys right now.
I will go ahead and give two. I was just double checking the ESPN big board to make sure I wasn't, way off on what it is. So I think an absolute steal, and gosh, there's got to be no way that it happens. But a guy like Kobe Buffkin falling somehow, man, that would be incredible. I would love to add him at 30. He's a great player. I personally would probably take him top 20. So again, I think that would be like the absolute steal in terms of a guy that has talked about potentially being in that range. I mean, Tariq Whitehead would be pretty interesting right there if he falls. I think a lot of places have him in the 20s, right? So that's not too much of a slip. So if he's there, he'd be ideal, or even a move up like 2 or 3 spots to nab him.
Real quick, as far as Derek, I've been so high on Derek since high school, and I'm never wavered. He's pushing top 10 for me still. I love Derek.
Nice, love it. He's a talented guy.
That.
Yeah. 5 years at Montverde, it's really hard to do.
Well, for me, I picked 31. I've been pretty vocal about Julian Strawther out of Gonzaga. So another guy, though, who I like is Marcus Sasser out of Houston. He's just a shooting backup guard, scored at will at Houston. I think he's a senior. I think he's 21, 22.
Mm-hmm.
I believe so.
Which I also like. Like, I think you can either take sort of a massive swing in the second round for like a tantalizing prospect that hasn't done a lot, or you can go for the guys who you know what you're going to get day one. And I don't want to get into a Killian Hayes debate, but Marcus Sasser, someone to come off the bench and score efficiently, or just put up points and hit shots from downtown, and just be aggressive. Like, from what I've watched, he's got a bit of dog in him. And I really I could see him being a real steal at the start of the second round. A little bit undersized, but coming off the bench, you're not as concerned about that with the role he'll be playing. So, yeah, he's a guy I really like at 31.
Yeah, Sasser's one of my favorites too. He's such a tough defender too.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess the second half of this question, guys, I'm just trying to find it again. Who would you trade up for from 31? So the way I'm interpreting this is, would you try and package 31 and let's just say player X and the Pistons to get into the 20s? Is there a player there you would do that for? For me, it's Maxwell Lewis from Pepperdine. If he's there, he's sort of that intriguing wing, can shoot it, good size. He was on a really bad team at Pepperdine, but he's sort of an intriguing wing. I wouldn't mind getting into the 20s to select if he's there.
Yeah, he would be a good one. I also had my eye on Bilal Coulibaly, who played on the same Mets 92 team as Victor. And he's kind of, in my mind, like a Mikal Bridges light, where he's got a lot of the 3-and-D typical things that you want, but he's starting to show a little bit of the creation flashes as well. So I think that'd be a guy that you might target as well.
For sure.
Yeah, I think I was pretty much going to echo what you guys have said. Someone in that type of range, right? You got usually valued in those low teens that drops into the mid 20s unexpectedly. Yeah, I think that would be interesting to do. I think if I were to make a prediction, though, I think the most likely outcome with that 31st pick is just traded for a player. I mean, a lot of times you'll see contenders that don't right now have a first round pick target those high second rounders to dump salary and then get someone cheap. So I can't remember the list of teams that are very good right now but don't have a first round pick. I would be looking at the kind of middle to back end of their roster and keeping my eye on some of those guys. I don't know. I feel like that's pretty likely. I doubt they want to add another 20-year-old after that number 5 overall pick if they want to build and take a step forward.
Suns are definitely a candidate for that as well, by the way. The good team without a first round pick. Yeah.
Well, hey, so you've got the Suns connection. Is there anyone on that roster that, I mean, maybe not that you think they'd be willing to flip, but that would be good for the Pistons to get in that type of value move?
As far as salaries that they're trying to get rid of, I think the only two that come to mind are, and I need to double check this, but I think they'd be willing to move off of Campaign, who I think is entering the $6 million of his last year, and then Landry Shamet entering the last year at $14 million. I may be misremembering whether it's the last year or not, but those are two guys that they've shown an interest recently in potentially shopping.
Those are they're two very interesting names, especially with the context we're talking about, because Shamet, I think, has had his struggles in the playoffs, but he would be a real but we're not talking playoffs in Detroit. We're trying to get to 28 wins. That's where we're at. So I feel like a veteran like Shamet to come off the bench, or who can spot start if you have injuries at the 2. I like that. I think that his movement, shooting ability, I think that would be a really good get. I wonder if that's his last year of his deal. Did you say it was $14 million expiring?
I think so. I'll check real quick.
Yeah.
That's definitely a player. That's a move I could see Troy doing. And Campaign,
I think. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was going to say, I think the thing to remember with all of these guards that you could potentially add, even in free agency on cheaper deals, is Alec Burks is pretty flexible in the position that he can play. Like I don't think you'd ever want to start him at the 1, but as a backup, like he could run the show in spot minutes, especially if he's splitting that time with a guy like Jaden Ivey, who's going to get a lot of bench point guard minutes too. So like if you want to upgrade from Killian Hayes, you do not strictly have to acquire a point guard. You could get a more scoring guard and let Burks and Ivy kind of split those backup 1 duties, and it would be just fine. So you got flexibility is all.
Sure. And it looks like we got confirmation here. 2 more years, but team option and non-guaranteed. Is that correct?
The thing I'm looking at right now on Basketball Reference, so take it with a grain of salt, is $33 million over the next 3 years. And I'll check Fanspo as well.
For Shamet. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we can come back to that. The next question here is from Mark. Does the draft pick this year make the starting lineup? An interesting question. Depends. If they take Cam Whitmore and Bojan Bogdanovic is still on the roster, I could still see a world where maybe Cam comes off the bench to open the season and Bojan starts at the 3. I really feel like we're going to see 2 bigs to open the season. So if that's the case, I could see Bojan at the 3 for some shooting. But yeah, that would be my thoughts.
I got confirmation, by the way. So it's $33 million over the next 3 years, but the second year is non-guaranteed, and the third year is the club option.
Interesting. That sounds like a
James Jones
flexible
deal.
Yeah, James Jones has this tendency to structure deals so weirdly. Like the Chris Paul one still has 2 years left on it, but only half of this year's is guaranteed, and then none is guaranteed the last year. So he's prone to do weird deals.
Yeah, that's got me baffled, stumped. There we go. James Jones.
So I guess technically Shamet could be an expiring if you want him to be.
Yeah, okay. I don't know how to feel. I need some time to think about that. But back to our question: Does the draft pick this year make the starting lineup?
Come on, Damon.
I'm with you. I think a lot of it has to do with whether Bojan is still on the roster or not. If something like that Bojan for 10 deal were to materialize, then I could totally see Asar or Whitmore taking his place in the starting lineup. Jarris is the kind of guy who, regardless of what happens with the roster, could make a case to start just because of how good I believe that defense is going to be from day one, where he's able to play on perimeter guys as well as against bigs. You know, that sort of versatility really unlocks lineups a lot.
I'm going to give a strategic non-answer, and I'll walk it through. In the past, every single top 10 pick, you could say top 7 because that's where Killian was picked, but every top pick the Pistons have had has started game number 1 since Troy Weaver has been brought in. And I don't think that the quality of prospect that they have available to them at 5 would indicate that should change. Like, I don't know. I think pretty much anyone that they can grab at 5 is at least as talented or nearly as talented as a guy like Jaden Ivey. So I would expect them, based on history, to start the number 5 pick. However, they have been talking a lot about wanting to compete more, right? I mean, we've been hearing that coming out of the beat writers since midway through last season, that this is the year they want to take a step forward to getting closer to that play-in conversation. So given that, if there was a year that was ever going to change, where your top 5 pick is coming off the bench, this would be probably the one. So that's my strategic non-answer. It doesn't seem likely because recent history says no, but a lot of the messaging says, hey, maybe. So I'll walk the middle.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Every pick has started, including Killian. So,
and Sadiq Bey, I think, started like game 2.
Yeah. I guess maybe because I was sort of making my decision based on the too big look, but I guess maybe to open the season, if they do draft Cam Whitmore, they go Whitmore, Bojan at the 4 and Durant and see how that goes.
I love that, Jack.
Next question is from Wade Jackson. What is the evaluation of Zach Edey? I'm turning this one over to you guys. I've got nothing on this. I know who Zach Edey is, but yeah, that's about it.
Let me do a Mark Cuban impression and just say I'm out, because I frankly don't see the NBA fit for him, truthfully. I think he could dominate the G League if he wants, but it's just not the way that the NBA plays anymore. You have to be able to run up and down the court and stay quick possession to possession, and I just don't think that Zach can hold up at that level for long stretches.
Yeah, I'm out too, and I'm no draft expert. So I think the only hope for Zach Edey would be to have him just watch hours and hours of film of Boban Marjanovic and just say, hey, if you want to be a plotting and 7'4" big man, at least do these other things on offense where like you'll get paid to be the 5th big for years. I think that's his best outcome. There's no size in the G League, Damon. He'll kill the G League for years.
Exactly.
There's no one down there. But yeah,
is he
out? Pass.
Is he purely just like a back to the basket, or just hovers around the paint?
He's just massive. Area?
Yeah, he's 7'4" with cinder blocks for feet and a great post game, but that's not the world we live in anymore.
For sure. Maybe he'll come down to the NBL. I feel like I'd like to watch him in the NBL down here in Australia. could be a bench big there.
He'd be good in the EuroLeague too.
For sure.
They still have some traditional bigs.
All right. Next question is from Harry once again. What do y'all want to see out of the next City Edition jersey?
Red. That's my answer. Next.
That was going to be mine. Red. Damon?
I'm
I don't want anything
wondering,
fancy.
can they put a car on it? That's what I'm wondering.
I love that. I guess I got a question. Do you think, what's your guys' opinion on the teals?
I love teal. My junior high school's colors are black and teal. I'll ride with teal all day.
Wes?
This isn't going to make me popular. I don't like it. Not a fan. I don't think it looks good. First off, it's green. It just looks green to me. Doesn't look teal. And then second, like that's just not the Pistons colors. I don't know. I'm a stickler for the Pistons. I'm fine with adding some like black and some accents. If you want to shift around the shade of blue and red, whatever. But just keep it simple. I don't know. No teal for me.
See, I like the teal jersey. I hate the court that comes with it. The court is so dull. They need to like, and I get why they
That
have
was
got
replica is what they did.
Yeah, I understand why, but that court is so dull. I feel like the teals, they could explore some more options with the court if they're going to go down that avenue. But yeah, there's just some funny stuff going around on Pistons Twitter about the teal curse, and that's why the Pistons dropped.
Yeah,
to
that's
pick
why they
5.
fell.
That's why Cade was injured. It's why all these bad things happen this season. All right, next one is from Siren. My draft board is Miller, Amen, Cam, Hendricks. What about you guys? I assume he's bored from pick 5 for the Pistons.
For the Pistons, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, if we're going with 4 guys, then I'll go with Asar, Jarris, Whitmore, and then Miller.
All right. My 4 favorite, I would probably go. I mean, yeah. So if Miller's there, Miller.
Yeah.
Cam, Anthony Black, Amen Thompson. In that order.
Interesting.
I'd love to hear more of an Anthony Black pitch, by the way, because I don't see the fit on a team that needs shooting.
Well, I would levy the same question against Amen and Asar, though.
I think
right,
Asar's got shooting chops at this point.
Really?
Yeah. Did you see the jump from regular to postseason?
No, I did, and he's made a lot of year-over-year improvements too. Like he's definitely been progressing, I would say. So there's absolutely more hope for him than Amen because he's also not afraid to shoot it. If as long as I'm not wrong about that, right?
Yeah, he took 7 per game in the playoffs.
There you go. Yeah. No, so my pitch on Anthony Black is he I think this is also from Sam Vecini too, but he might be the highest IQ player in the draft. He's 6'6". He is an incredible weak side defender, right? I mean his timing on help on drives, rotations onto bigs. I mean he's an incredible functional defender. He's playing the passing lanes a lot. And I actually do buy the shot. I know it's a set shot, but functionally it looks okay to me. And the fact that he wasn't just god awful from the free throw line means there's a little hope. So I mean, he's a guy I don't think he's ever gonna like hit 40 or anything, but league average slightly above. I think that's well within reach for him. And then offensively, I personally love the idea of adding another ball handler. I know that's not necessarily popular. We want more wings, but having kind of a 3-headed monster of Cade, Ivy, and then even Amen or a guy like Anthony Black. I mean, those are all guys. Ivy's the shortest at what 6'4", 6'5", right? All of them can handle the ball as main or as bench point guard. I would just have so much fun with the actions that you could organize for these guys to really start attacking. And again, if you're going to pick out a guy to be more off ball of those 3, because you're not taking the ball out of Cade's hands, and Ivy, you kind of want to be rip and go or operating pick and roll. Anthony Black's IQ again, and then Amen Thompson's feel are really intriguing. So there's my Anthony Black pitch.
I can get behind it.
I think based off just the prospects listed here in the question, I would probably have Amen slightly ahead of Miller. I just buy
It's a hot take.
into
I love it.
Yeah, I just buy into the first step on offense, ability to create the handle, just getting to the paint at will. That's what I buy into with Amen. The shot is questionable, but you could say that with a few of these guys in this 5 to 10 range. Amen's is definitely one of the scarier looking jumpers. Like it feels like that needs to be rebuilt
And
completely.
he doesn't want to shoot it.
Yeah.
Like
so
that's the biggest worry too.
yeah, I'm not giving that a pass, but I just really, I buy into the defensive potential. Although Bryce from Motor City Hoops has said he's worried about the habits the Thompson twins might have developed in their OT, which that does give me some pause because I really respect Bryce's opinion. And there was a lot of questions surrounding, I guess, the talent level there. So, but I have immense.
It's talent and it's structure too. I mean,
Yeah.
he had shown me some plays where like dead ball just ref handed the guy the ball instead of like there's just some shenanigans that go on. It's really odd.
Yeah.
It's really weird. It's just weird.
So
anyway,
it's
sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good because it's interesting discussion because how much of that is the Thompson's twins just sort of almost taking their foot off the gas. This isn't me making this isn't copium. This is more just like they're clearly a level above of everyone in that league. I guess it doesn't bode well for when you're looking at the film, but maybe there were times they just have lapses out of concentration. But yeah, to answer the question, I've gotten off track here. I have Amen slightly ahead of Miller, then I have Miller, Cam, and Hendricks out of those four. And then the next question, once again from Rogue Blue. I think this is your third one of the night, so I appreciate the support. What do you value more from a wing from the draft? 3-point shooting or defense? We need both, but which do you lean towards?
That's a good
question. Yeah.
You want to take it, Damon, or you want me to go?
I can do it. Yeah. I think that if it's someone that's got a lot of on-ball equity, someone like an Anthony Black who's already giving a good amount on offense without the 3-point shooting already, then I think that the defense is more important. But if it's someone like I guess Cam Whitmore, who's maybe not as high usage, the 3-point shooting then becomes really valuable because then what else are you offering on offense,
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, just in the general sense, I would lean towards valuing defense a little more highly, but a lot of that is riding on Jaden Ivey's catch and shoot numbers to wrap up last year and expecting Cade to kind of take a step based on the shooting prospect he was, not necessarily what we've seen so far in the NBA. So provided that both of those guys can be functional 3-point shooters, Ivey especially off the catch, adding in a guy like Bojan, the most important thing that kind of group, I guess, needs is someone to take primary matchups to give Cade, give Ivey, give Bojan a break when needed. So yeah, that would be my general reasoning on slightly leaning towards the defense.
For sure. I wanted to bring this question up from Tony. Are we sure Jarris is a better shooter than Isaiah Stewart? He shot 34% from three and only 66% from the free throw line. And I wanted to bring this up because I feel like there's a lot of comparisons going around between the two, and immediately you can look at the shooting percentages and they are sort of similar from what Stewart shot in year 3. But I think the difference is what Walker brings you offensively is like someone who can attack off the dribble, sort of create a little bit for others. Stewart's a lot. Like I'm the biggest. I'd say I'm one of the biggest Stew fans going around, and even I can see it's just still really clunky when he attacks off closeouts. Even his drives to the rim turn into like half post hooks. It's just there's not that fluidity that Walker has, and the potential Walker has to attack and sort of create a little bit for others, and just do more on offense in general. I'm not saying he's Jeremy Grant, but maybe he gets there. That's sort of somewhere he could get to. Whereas with Stewart, it's a lot more limited, even if he does develop as someone who can attack off closeouts and do a little bit more with the ball in his hands. I just don't think the potential's there like Walker.
Yeah, for me, anyone who's doubting Jarris as an offensive, shooter, hub, whatever you want to call him, they could just look back at the IMG tape that he had his senior year playing alongside Keontae George and some others. It was just so much more of a wide open structure where he was able to be more creative than what Kelvin Sampson was allowing him to do at Houston. And I think in that setting against still really good competition, because those national prep powerhouses really play tough schedules against, other D1 type players and other future NBA guys. And Jarris really held his own as an offensive creator, especially with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, that was almost the playmaking is exactly what I was going to bring up, right? Because he for the shooting question specifically, he absolutely has more history, and I mean he shot them in college. You can't really say the same thing about Isaiah Stewart. And then in terms of the comparison, just on its face value, I mean Isaiah Stewart in college was very much a back to the basket guy, traditional big type of player. Now he's gotten into the league, he's expanded a little bit, but his offense as it's expanded, he's pretty much become spot up shooter or rip and go, just like Jack said. Jarris Walker is a very good playmaker for the position, and he's already very much a face up player rather than a back to the basket guy. So I know they're both, hustle guys, they play hard defense, but I just don't think there's any reason to really compare the two of them, at least not right now.
Yeah, for me, the build is as far as the comparison goes.
Yeah, absolutely. My guy Harry, absolutely push my narrative. I love it.
I did. There was a funny way I wanted to ask this question to you guys, but I can't find it, unfortunately. But it's to do with free agency. I've seen a bit of chatter recently about one Kristaps Porzingis, and it's scaring me that people are entertaining that. No shade. I get it. It makes sense. You play him at the 4. I mean, I don't think he can play at the 4, but I get the two bigs. He can stretch the floor. He had a really good season with the Wizards last year. I think he actually was pretty healthy as well. And he was good defensively at the 5. So what's your guys' thoughts on Porzingis and I guess coming to Detroit?
I kind of think that playing Porzingis any real amount just puts a ceiling on how good you can be, because if you're not relying on him offensively and if you're not playing a drop defensively, then he's not playing to his full potential. And then the other pieces around that don't get maximized as well either, just because you're having to focus on what I consider to be a pretty mediocre guy, that if you're using him as your first or second option on either end, then that's kind of just a mediocre ceiling for your team.
Yeah, no, I would be out too. But to me, this just feels like the ultimate like coping fallback option. Like, oh man, yeah, we fell. We were going to get number 1. We fell from 1 to 5. So instead of drafting this like 7'5" unicorn prospect who can dribble, pass, shoot, defend, do everything, let's go sign Kristaps Porzingis to big money because he's only 2 inches shorter and he can shoot, and that's about the end of the pitch. Like that's where the comparison ends. I very out on the. You'd have to spend too much. He doesn't really fit, like you said, like both of you guys said. You can't play him at the 4. Absolutely not. He's not quick enough.
Man,
Maybe when he was younger,
we talk about
but
stiff
no,
hips.
no Kristaps.
Like,
Oh my god.
yeah, Kristaps is a fine player. This isn't us trashing Kristaps or even the
He's a
thought
very
of
good
bringing,
offensive center.
or even
Yeah,
bringing him to
absolutely.
Detroit. I think we're just very much against the idea, just in terms of the fit and the cost it would take. Like he is a 5. Maybe when he was a rookie, he could play some 4, but the injuries have limited him to a drop 5. And we have Jalen Duren, who we hope is the center of the future, and tying 30 million plus up. I mean, I'm guessing Porzingis would want at least I think it would be a 4-year deal, probably more than 30 million a year. That's not something I think Detroit needs. I think he'd be 28 this season. Yeah, like I don't like to get too
28
specific
with injury history, and you're
Just-
committing to a 7'3" guy who's you're going to pay at age 32. When last season was the first year since his rookie year that he eclipsed 60 games. No,
Yeah,
no.
So-
Yeah, I think that if Porzingis is going to play 12 minutes a game and be like a $8 million guy, then he'd be great to have. But
Mhm.
it's just not what he costs and not what he demands, you know?
for sure. I did say that was going to be our last question, but Camille here has asked this twice, and whenever I see Isaiah Stewart, I can't help myself. So, what do you expect from Stu next season? I'll let you guys go first.
Solid bench offense, hopefully. And that's about as far as I can get.
Can I ask you, what do you think about the 3-point shot? Do you think he ever gets to 36%, 37% on 3 again?
No. I just don't think the touch is there for it.
Yeah. I'm not sure he's going to get to league average either from 3, but I'll caveat that with saying I don't think he needs to. I mean, as a more traditional 4-man, 4 or 5 combo big, it'd be pretty great if he could get to 34 on a consistent 4 or 5 attempts a night, paired with his defense. I think ideally, I would want to set up the offseason where he's coming off the bench as your third big, and then really, really try to lean into, the spacing that hopefully he can offer on offense, and then just unleash him as a switch big 24/7 whenever he plays in maybe 20 minutes a night. And I think like long term, that would be ideal for him developmentally, and I think that's the role he ends up in anyway. So I want to see big things from him. I think he can do it. It just remains to be seen if he can excel there.
Yeah, I think you guys hit the nail on the head. I even as a Stu fan, I'd like to see him just solidify that role as the backup big next season. I think that's where he is going to thrive long term. I think I'm a little bit higher on the 3-point shot, but I definitely get you guys make great points. Just in terms of touch, because he doesn't really have touch around the basket. He's not a bad free throw shooter, but yeah. I tend to think he will get to maybe 36%, 37, absolute max. But yeah, I think like Wes said, have him off the bench, unleash him as a switch defender. He can do a little bit as a rim protector against backup bigs. I think he'll thrive more against backup bigs. That's where you see the best of him. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he gets extended this summer. We know he's one of Troy Weaver's favorites. Sure. We said last week, I think on the show, it'd be better to wait till next off season. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens there. That's all for today, guys. Thanks to Damon for joining us. Damon, tell the people where they can find you, the work you're doing.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm happy to come on anytime you guys want. I do work for Bright Side of the Sun, doing Suns content, where I'll have a scouting report up soon on Mike Miles, the TCU point guard, who would be in play for me at 31 if I was the GM, but I know a lot of NBA people are a little more skeptical of him. And then a Cam Whitmore thing coming hopefully next week on DBB. And then you can follow me on Twitter at I am Damon Allred as well. And then that's pretty much it.
And guys, also Damon wrote an awesome piece on Monty Williams a few days ago in relation to just some of the ways he coaches. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. There's some really interesting stuff in there that most Piston fans wouldn't know. So that was I really enjoyed that article.
Thank you very much.
No, it was awesome work, man. All right, so thanks to everyone who submitted questions tonight. Really appreciate everyone's support. Special thank you to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting this show. And join us next Thursday from 8 o'clock. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you guys. Peace.